Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Happy New Year 2022. It's happening. We're back and with as exciting content as last year. And I'm very happy to welcome Charles back onto the live stream. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year.
I'm very excited for today because we're going to talk about social media. We're going to talk about finding beauty in like different locations or beauty in the same location, like how to shoot the same location in different ways and how to publish it on social media. I really don't know how social media works, so I'm excited to find out more about it. And I will have a quick look to the chat because I see some familiar names. I see Tony. I'm very excited every time Tony's in the chat. Hi, Tony. I see Sandrine. Hello, Caroline. Oliver, Stuart, all these people. So nice to have you all back in 2022. And I would say let's just jump right into the topic.
Let's do it. Thank you for the lovely introduction. So yeah, as Sophia mentioned, I think today what I'm going to talk about is shooting, editing, and exporting for social media, with more of a focus on Instagram mainly, but a lot of these things can be applied across the board. And also, as requested on the Instagram poll yesterday, I do want to speak a little bit about finding the beauty in sort of everyday locations and different ways you can kind of change things up and get different looks out of the same spot. And I'm going to jump into that first. I started to sort of write about this, and then I realized that it was getting very, very long-winded, and I could probably do a whole session on it itself. So I'll try not to spend too much time on it. But yeah, let's get straight into that. What do I need to show you guys right now? Right now we're in Lightroom, and I have some images selected. Let's open up this lovely app here. And yeah, first of all, when it comes to finding the beauty, I think it's safe to say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So anything can be beautiful if you think it's beautiful. There's not really a way to say one thing is or isn't. But I think for this sense, this is just down to sort of my opinion and things that I think, ways that I think I can find something that I like and make it look more beautiful. One of the most important things I think when it comes to sort of making an everyday scene look, I guess, beautiful is framing. And framing for me is like one of my favorite things to play around with. You can do so many different things with a frame. You can sort of, I shoot a lot of landscapes. As you can see here, we have these 6 images here were all shot from exactly the same balcony.
Where is that?
That is Dubai. So that's from the Palm Jumeirah, from one of the hotels out just off the coast. And that's the Dubai skyline. And I think I was there for like 4 or 5 days for a job. And I was obsessed with this view. Every sort of morning and evening and midday as well, I'd be out there just like, I need to shoot more, I need to take more pictures. But we'll get back to that. So what I would like to say is, you can see here we have these 6 images, and they're all from the same spot and of the same, exactly the same subject, but they all look entirely different. We've got different focal lengths, different foregrounds, different times of day. And that's something that I was going to mention. So, if you're going to shoot the same thing and you kind of want to get more out of it, there's a bunch of variables that you can sort of play around with. One location can have a million different variables, but different places shine in specific scenarios. And you just need to be patient enough to kind of discover what that scenario is. For me, I think this shot here is actually my favorite out of all 6. I think
really?
This is, yeah.
Mine is the first one. Is it the sunrise or the sunset?
I think that's
incredible.
I think that's probably a sunset, maybe. I mean, I love that one as well, but I don't know why. I just like this one. I mean, I think this one here was all about just waiting for the sunset, right? I think that was just a wide shot of a sunset. This one here was like me playing around and thinking, okay, I've already shot the sunset, I've shot the sunrise, you know,
Yeah.
what else can I do? And this was kind of just like a late evening shot with like a bit of smog. And like, I really like the frame. I think I framed it with like the balcony at the front. So I changed the foreground. But yeah, I think what you kind of need to do is decide what you like about this everyday. I mean, this isn't an everyday shot, you know, it's a beautiful city skyline, but I mean, there'll be other examples. But I think I decided what I liked about this frame in my head. Like, I really like this sort of section here. Like, I don't know why, I just like that shape that the sort of buildings make into the sky, and then having like this little curve here and then this like nice sort of frame. And I just thought, how can I accentuate it? So obviously I changed the foreground. I sort of removed all of this noise here that kind of took away from this little bit here, and sort of focused in on that. I mean, there's a bunch of ways as well that you can kind of do this. So as I've mentioned, you can try different times of day. So you've got, I mean, dawn, dusk, midday.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Tim is like, if people can't even tell the difference between sunset and sunrise, why you even bother getting up early?
You know what? I feel like there is a different vibe.
I guess there are people that could tell the difference, and they would be quite upset if you would be like, this is a sunrise, and they're like, no, obviously this is a sunset. Yeah. Everyone knows that.
There's probably some scientific method to it, like looking at the angle of the light, like, according to my calculations.
Yeah.
I think sunrise is better though. I do prefer sunrise, although I rarely make it up in time for them. But they are, the fog, the lack of people, I think they're way more worth it.
I think it also feels more worth it because you sacrificed your sleep a bit more. Like, you got up early and you put in the work and the time to actually take this photo.
And you make sure you let everyone know about it on your stories as well. Like, I definitely got up for dawn this morning. So yeah,
exactly.
Definitely worth it. But yeah,
different times of day for sure.
So yeah, different times of day. And I mean, not just the light that changes throughout the day. I mean, places look entirely different when they're busy or empty. So like I was saying, like at dawn, like a lot of people are still in bed. So if you want to shoot an area, even if it's in like a city or a town, if you don't want the people to be there, then get up earlier. And like that changes the whole frame entirely. Like if there's no people, it's just going to be, I mean, you see a lot more. And you get a lot more access to sort of angles and viewpoints as well when everyone's asleep. Also to do with time of day, if you're shooting in like a coastal area or somewhere with water, like the tides can change. And I think I have some images, you know, if you're shooting surf stuff, like the beach is going to be entirely different. Like this, I have some images of this castle here, Eileen Donan Castle in Isle of Skye. And I mean, when I was there, all of this water was gone. So it looked nothing like this. The tide was out and it was an entirely different sort of location. I could walk around on all of this water here and I was taking shots from like low down. I got like a little time lapse for some rocks here. Like it was an entirely different location. And I think I got like a much wider variety of shots as well. So that's something else to kind of think about.
But that also ties back in with like research, like, or if you want to know what it looks like for places like that, you have to research that before, I guess. Yeah.
I'm going to pretend like I meant to get there when the tide was out.
Sure. That's exactly
that was all my research. Yep. But
all on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Entirely on purpose.
Yeah.
So besides from time, I mean, I did mention light briefly, but I mean, light sort of intensity can vary throughout the day as well. You know, you can have harsh light, you can have soft light, warm light, cold light. And again, these all change the shot entirely. I mean, again, if you look here, we've got some nice warm colors here because the sun's setting. This, I think, was shot, or rising, who knows. This was shot in the middle of the day, so it's very direct light. And it does, I think, create a much different sort of, I mean, I've edited them very similarly, but a much different sort of mood. Like this is very bright and intense and just, there's not really many shadows. And I think it just sort of shows the city on a day-to-day sort of vibe. And this is also applicable, obviously, if you're shooting subjects. You know, you want sometimes the light to be a lot softer if you're shooting a model, but I mean, if you're going for that look, you can go for a harsh light as well. Something else, which is really good to sort of change a sort of one spot up is the weather systems. And this is something that I learned from a friend of mine. Tobias, who's a really, really talented Swedish photographer, really cool guy, Tobias Hag. And I did like a few days of traveling with him and sort of, in fact, I think I have the imagery here to show it as an example. We were shooting a location in the Italian Alps, and it was this place called the Earth Pyramids. And I thought it was a really beautiful frame already. And I was like, cool, let's take some pictures. And he said, no, just wait. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, just wait, like, I promise you it's going to be worth it. And he knew that the clouds were going to roll up the mountain and start interweaving between these like little rocks. And he was like, there you go. Now that's National Geo stuff right there. He's like, let's shoot now. And I was just like, wow, like, it changed my whole perspective on kind of shooting and like the things that you look for when you shoot. See if I have an image of it.
Do you feel like taking photos of landscapes has to do with a lot of being patient? Because I feel like that's what I struggle with. I would be like, I go there, I take a photo, I leave. But I think the more and more I talk to people that actually are landscape photographers, it's a lot about waiting for the lighting, for the perfect time, for, the clouds, the sun, something. Like, it takes a lot of patience. I think people don't understand that. At least I didn't.
I think definitely, it is definitely a lot about the patience and kind of waiting and kind of having faith as well that there's going to be something happening soon that's going to be better than what you've already shot. And a lot of the time I will go somewhere and take a photograph and be like, oh, this is great, I love it. But then just as I'm about to leave, it's like, oh, hang on a second, like this looks even better. And then I'll be shooting that as well. And it's like, I think, it is patience, but also I like to think it's a lot of luck as well, because most of my favorite pictures I've ever taken have been by pure chance. Of me I'll be on a road trip or traveling. Like, this image here, for example, this one here, I got lost on the way down from a hike and wasn't even meant to be there at sunset because I didn't want to be on the side of the mountain at sunset. But I got lost and was walking along the path and saw this frame and I was like, I need to take this picture right now. And the same with this one. It's the same sunset, but it was just entirely by chance. So I think it's also having a sort of good eye for framing and knowing when, okay, I need to pull over and take this picture right now. And I think I posted something to Instagram the other day. Do I have my Instagram up? Yes. And it was entirely that. I think I was driving from the west of France to the Swiss Alps, and I was going through this tiny village at like dawn, entirely on my own. And I came to this roundabout and I saw this, like, in my head, I just knew that this was going to be a really nice frame. And I got out to sort of take some pictures and some video. And as I was filming, the street lights switched off, the bells started to ring, and this fog started to roll through the town. And I couldn't have planned that. It just was entirely by luck.
Yeah. But then I guess it's also about like realizing that that's the perfect moment. I guess then because if we talk about sunset and sunrise, you have to that takes, I don't know, how long does it take? I guess some people, once again, know exactly how long it takes, but it doesn't take long. So you have to be like, this is the moment. I have to take this photo now because the clouds are going to disappear again. The weather's going to change. So it's about waiting and then knowing when to take the photo.
I think you can put yourself in more situations where you're likely to be able to take beautiful photos. So like you say, like planning, knowing when the sunset and sunrise times are, and kind of being prepared as well, like always having your camera if you're going to be doing something where there's a chance that you could take an image like that, I think. So that I think is also quite important. I'll quickly run through some other ones so we can get onto the actual shooting and editing and exporting. But like I said, I started writing these things down and I was like, wow, I really have a lot to say about this. Exposure times, I think, are super, super important. You can, change an image so much by changing the exposure settings.
Do you use a tripod then? If you use for example, a really blurry look, then you have to, I guess, use it for this, for example.
Yeah, so I don't tend to shoot a lot of long exposure stuff, maybe at night, like astro stuff, but I actually have a Joby tripod, like one of those little gorilla pods, which, because I do a lot of hiking and stuff, the ones that you could bend about and attach to things.
Yeah, I have one too.
Yeah, they're great. And I think if you can just have that in your backpack or attach somewhere, because it's so light, it's really easy to just sort of, okay, I'm going to just attach the camera to this quickly. And you do need some sort of stable footing for the camera to do that. But I think it's worth it, right? Like, I think I have this shot here, and then did I put it in there? Maybe not. Okay, this image here. Here we go. This is the same again frame, just two different exposures. You know, this is a quick snap. I think, what's the time for that one? Let's say, there you go, 1/200th of a second. And then this one here was, okay, 0.4 seconds, but which isn't, I mean, that much in the grand scheme of things, but it allows the water to sort of smoothen out and blur, and it just creates a entirely different picture. So, I mean, the same with, like, if you're in a city, you know, the crowd, you can blur the crowd, lights of cars and stuff that are moving at night, just 100 different ways to sort of make the normal a little bit more beautiful.
Artistic?
Yes, artistic, that's the word.
Also, I like Sean said that you have to slow down when you take like landscape photos, and I guess that's also true. Like, you have to be aware of your surroundings and just like don't rush through things. Just look around and see what you can actually, what you want to like photograph. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense to me as well, because I think with my ADHD, my brain's always going a million miles an hour. So I think maybe that's why I love landscape photography, because I actually have to stop and be like.
For me, it's the opposite. I was just about to be like, my like, I would go crazy because you need patience and it takes time and you can't change the landscape. For me, it's like working with humans. I can be like, can you please turn around? Can you do that?
Yeah.
Landscape, just like, what am I supposed to do?
I don't know, maybe I kind of, it just gets me in the zone and I kind of forget about all of the other like random thoughts. So that's great. Interesting.
Also, quick question. Tony asks if you're using ND filters, because I see you were on 22 f-stop on the last one. So.
This one here?
I'm not sure which ones, but if you like really want to have a long shutter, no.
A long exposure, like a longer shutter speed.
Then are you working with an ND filter just to not have to go to, I don't know, f-stop of 22?
Yes, that's actually very important. Thank you for bringing that up. So I have a couple of variable ND filters. I don't have any graduated filters, but I do have a couple of variable for like the few lenses that I use to shoot. And yeah, that basically lets me keep my settings at a lower f-stop. And then just reduce the light coming in, which is, I mean, a very handy just to have in your kit bag. Like with the variable ones as well, you're not stuck on that certain sort of, that's, I don't know what you would call it, stop, I guess, reduction. But yeah, ND filters are very, very useful sort of tools. And I also use a polarizing filter, a circular polarizer, especially when I'm shooting water. Probably used it on this shot here, if it's gonna, it's been a little bit slow, or maybe not. But I mean, I don't like this image. I like the frame, but I don't like the way the water looks, which is why I was like, I don't really like it. It's kind of muddy. It doesn't look very neat. And then I thought, okay, let's slow it down a bit. And then I was like, okay, cool. I could do it. It's like you get some nice reflections, you know, there's a bit more nice sort of, I don't know, contrast. But yeah, polarizing filters, when you're shooting water, they kind of take the glare away and put a bit of contrast and saturation back into the image, especially if you're shooting in sort of harsher light conditions. And the same with the sky, right? It kind of brings the kind of color back into the skies too. So two really useful sort of tools when you're shooting landscape imagery. Yeah. And then quickly, last few points. So I think events, you know, maybe like there might be events that change a location entirely, like for example, a festival or something that's usually really busy and packed, maybe closes down for the weekend, like a marketplace. So think about going to shoot it when the markets are closed. You know, if every day, the everyday norm is that this place is bustling and busy and packed full of stalls and stuff, maybe go there when it's not open and shoot it sort of offline. You know, it's just changing things up. And then, yeah, the most important thing I think is finding your own viewpoint, like find your own frame, because it's so easy to go somewhere and shoot the cliche shot that everyone else can take. And for me, like, I like to pride myself, at least I think, that I can be a bit more creative with my framing, and the shots that I like to share are not every day. Like you go on the explore page and you can see it 100 times, you know? So just sort of move around. Like I think I had some examples here of this actually, like here, right? So this is the Matterhorn. and there's 4 photos of it, but all from entirely different viewpoints. And I like to sort of play around with my foreground, the elevation, you know, the angles. Like here you can see I'm sort of shooting from a higher point down, so I can include the whole village. Here I'm on ground level, so you know, you only see like this part of the village, and then it's sort of all flat. Here I'm really far away, and then here we've framed it with some trees. So again, like, change your viewpoints, walk around, do some exploring, take your time to sort of just see what looks best, you know. And I think that's sort of really, really important to hammer home, is just play around and explore. And subjects can change everything too, right? There's 2 shots here.
The horses.
Without the horses, I think it would be quite a plain shot of, I mean, Iceland's beautiful, but this is just a field with some cool mountains behind it. But from this viewpoint, without the horses, it would be quite bland, I think. So finding some subjects to add into the foreground. And then here as well, we have like a very small person, and it kind of just gives scale to the whole ravine, which I think makes it like that much cooler. And it sort of gives a sort of little focus point as well. So think about subjects and things that you can add to the foreground or the background of an image to sort of switch it up and make it more unique.
Yeah. The Icelandic ponies, bring them.
They do. And who doesn't love an Icelandic pony?
I mean, Tony loves them. He just said in the chat. So, I mean, I think they look super cute, honestly. Not a big fan of horses in general, but those ones are really cute.
We have very similar hair, myself and the Icelandic ponies. So, you know, we kind of bonded on that, I think. And that's why they were hanging out with me for a bit.
You're like, I get you.
Yeah, I get it. I feel you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was sort of most of the brief little rundown of how I feel about finding beauty and sort of making things your own when it comes to sort of everyday. I mean, these aren't everyday things, but I mean,
you can still apply that to everyday things.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
You know,
I did want to show like a sort of, I did have a couple of images that I think are sort of just in the city, kind of everyday shots. Like here, for example, this is just a street in London. I haven't edited this one, but I think the pigeons, like, the birds, they make it really like everyday, just shot of a wall in a council estate. They kind of add something new to it, right? And it's looking for stuff. Yeah, looking for stuff like that. And I mean, here down at the Barbican,
we love that.
Just the time of day, the light happened to be coming down this little sort of gap here at this time of day. And if I hadn't been there at that time, I wouldn't have seen it like that, and it wouldn't have been the same image, you know? Yeah. And then here as well, like this is just a kitchen window in, I think it was like a little cottage in Sweden. And I really like the frame, but I think the time of day, again, the light, the color really adds.
That's not edited. Like that's just, I guess, some sunrise, sunset kind of situation.
Is it edited? Oh no, it is edited. That's the original. Okay. But I mean, obviously I've like pumped it up a bit.
Yeah, but I can see.
Yeah. So that was kind of, those are some everyday scenarios that I think you can kind of apply those techniques to and get something a bit more. Yeah.
And I guess if people want to see more of that, because I do feel like we could talk about this for an hour, like literally. So if you out there want to see more of that, just let us know in the chat and we will do another one talking exclusively about this topic.
I would love to do that, I think.
Yeah. We're going to put this in the universe manifesting. So it's going to happen.
Yes. But the real reason we're here is to talk about shooting, editing, and exporting.
Yes,
social
media. Let's jump right in.
Well, let's do that. So the first of those topics is shooting. And I mean, there's some very important things to take into mind when shooting with social media. A lot of it comes down to framing and taking sort of that into mind. And when I say framing, I mean, obviously we've talked about framing in this sense, but when you shoot for social media, a lot of the time, you know, it's going to be ended up on a phone screen or a phone screen. So it's going to be portrait and you want to take up as much of that space as possible. So you want to shoot your images to be portrait as well. And you also want to crop them, depending on where they're going to be used. 99% of the time, if you're posting to your feed, it needs to be at a 4:5 aspect ratio. So, I mean, Lightroom lets you do that really easily. You can just go here on the develop tab and click on this tool here and then change it to 4:5. And that is how your feed post will show once it's sort of on Instagram. You know, if you can have it, you can export as is without the crop, but you're going to lose a part of the image anyway when you do that. So you might as well sort of crop it here and figure out your framing beforehand, right? And for me, like I said before, framing is very important. So I'd take a lot of time thinking about what am I framing here and what do I really want to focus on. And this image, for example, a lot of the time I like to have my horizon. I like to play around with my thirds. Like thirds are just constantly in my head. I dream about the rule of thirds at night. It's a bit too much. But for me, like when I shot it, I would have been considering the thirds already. So when I was taking the picture, I would have been thinking, okay, how do I want these thirds to line up? Like, how do I want to frame it? What ratios do I have? So you can see here, like this little house is on this line here. Like that wasn't by mistake. Like I thought about that. And the same with the horizon, right? I knew that this here, like the sky above, we've got tons of that. And it's not really bringing anything new to the image. You know, like we've got some gray, we've got more gray here. So if I lose some gray, it's not going to affect the photo. This grass brings some color and some sort of contrast and change. So if I was going to crop it, I probably wouldn't crop it like that. I'd probably crop it like that. But then who knows? Who knows what creative decisions you make in the spur of the moment.
I was just about to say, I would have probably cropped it exactly the other way around.
Yeah, when I did it, I was like, I said all those nice things, and then like, actually, I'm lying because I probably would crop it like that.
And I can actually hear my mom, if she would look at the photo, she would be like, oh, honey, but there's so much white in the photo. Every time I do photos where I'm like, no, this is art. She's like, but there's a lot of like empty space, and like, that's the purpose.
But you can do things with it, right? So like if you did say I did crop it like this, something I might do is try and add some gradient here. I mean, we're going to talk about masks later, but I'd probably put in like a linear gradient and try to
get
at least
some more
get a bit more like pizzazz out of it, you know?
Pizzazz. Oof, love a little bit of pizzazz.
I'll play around with that. But even like, you know, when you're cropping things, you might want to sort of bring it down a bit. Maybe I just want to have this bit here, right? Like, I think for me, the cottage was the focus because that sort of stood out. But things to think about, right? So when I talk about the crop though, when you're shooting subjects, especially, you need to realize and remember that you're going to lose like, how much are we losing off the top here to show actually?
But question on that before I forget, because I forget my questions quite fast. Do you also do it as a square sometimes? Because I'm struggling with that. I always do 4:5, but also because it's magazine stuff. Like I can use it for everything. Everything I do has to be 4:5. So I use it for social media too. But then I'm like, oh, if people go to my page, like to the account itself, and it's not in the feed, but like you go to the page, it still crops, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. A little bit. So do you ever post stuff as a square so it fits exactly into your overall account page?
Like you mean like these sort of thumbnails here?
Exactly. Do you crop it so it's exactly that size, or do you always go 4:5 and just you're okay with the fact that it loses a bit of like top and bottom? I'll usually just crop it 4:5. I think there's very rare situations. I wish I could find one, but in some cases I will crop it square, but it's not thinking of this. It's more thinking of the actual, like when I'm editing, like, okay, actually, I don't want this to be a 4:5. Like, I think it actually looks better as a square. So yeah, I mean, and if you think about it as well, like 9 times out of 10, if someone's looking at your Instagram feed, they're probably going to be seeing your imagery in their feed. So it will be the 4:5 ratio. Like, maybe when they follow you or they find your account for the first time, they'll probably be scrolling through here going, okay, what does this person have on their account? But yeah, honestly, no one, I mean, I don't know, maybe people do, but for me, like, I would never say, okay, well, this person's a bad photographer because this is slightly off in the thumbnail, you know? Like, if they would have only taken the photo in square, you know? Yeah. Then it would have been a good photo.
But yeah, I mean, obviously some people really take a lot of time to curate the aesthetic of the actual thumbnails and like want things to match up. I'm not one of those people. I think for me, it's more about the colors, like the sort of colors, overall colors of the feed that are more important. But I mean, having the sort of thumbnail aesthetic is a thing that people do. So if you were going to sort of work on that, then I guess cropping it square and posting like that would be the best way to do it. But then you're taking up less space on their screen, so it's sort of a less real estate to take up. Yeah, and you want to be in people's faces on
You
social
want to be
media.
in people's faces.
Exactly.
That's true.
So cropping, yeah. So one thing I will mention is, yeah, think about how much you're going to lose when you're actually shooting, right? Because let me see. There's a picture of a person here. A person. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you're shooting a subject as well, right? If this was a closer up, say a more cropped in image, say we'd shot the original photo like this, that was the original photo, right? And very tight in, like very tight, very close. What would actually happen is when I came to edit it and put it on Instagram, I would probably have to choose between like my head or my feet. And I'd lose a bit of that.
Yes, we would go with the feet, you know?
Probably the feet. I mean, if anything, we'll just zoom right in on the feet. That's probably going to be the post right there, just the feet.
I mean, it is. For me, that is very Tumblr 2012, if you would just have the feet.
And have a quote below it as well.
Yes,
or maybe overlay.
Like, you never walk alone.
Yeah, that's it. Perfect. Maybe that would be the caption.
If you post this, it should be the caption, please.
Yeah, you'll never walk alone. So yeah, when you're shooting subjects or anything for social media, always consider, I sort of frame it back a bit. You know, I give myself a bit more space at the top and the bottom, just to account for what's going to be lost when I crop it. So this is the original shot here, as I've shown you already. And I mean, I usually just say, like, when I'm shooting on my camera, I'll put my finger on the top and bottom of the screen. I mean, it's kind of ingrained into my head now, but that's a good way to say it's like a finger's width at the top and the bottom that you're losing from the shot, which is kind of, yeah, that would be one finger there and one finger there. So just sort of frame it around that and take it into consideration.
I should have not made a joke about Tumblr. Someone's like, I still have Tumblr. I didn't even know Tumblr still exists. Sorry. No shade to Tumblr. Tumblr is great.
It's a great place. I haven't actually, yeah, maybe I should investigate Tumblr. I haven't been on there in a long time. I digress.
Tony says he's too young to remember Tumblr. Yeah, sure, Tony. It's yeah. I'm too old for Tumblr. I don't know. Sorry, this topic, totally off topic. We're going back.
No.
We're
gonna talk posting for Tumblr. That's the new topic now. How to create Tumblr posts.
Very spontaneous change of topic. Sorry.
So yeah, framing. I talked about framing. I think if we're going to talk about choosing locations, I mean, it depends really what you want to get out of it. If you want to try and post images that are going to get lots of likes and work for the algorithm, then obviously you kind of want to do the cliche. Well, I say this, use the explore pages to research, right? So if you go on the explore page and hit the travel column, it's going to show you all the posts that are doing well. So this is obviously what Instagram wants to see more of. And travel photographers and landscape photographers on Instagram have a very good habit of all going to the exact same spots when they're very popular and taking the same pictures and editing them in the same way. I'm not throwing shade at anyone, but it's just how it is. And it's a good way to boost your following and get more likes. You know, if I think there was a time like when Iceland was really popular. I mean, it still is, but you know, there was a time like 2018, I think everyone was flying to Iceland. And then after that, it was like this little island off the coast of Norway, like Lofoten or somewhere like that. And there's like the same spots you can go to at each of these locations, and you can shoot them. And, you know, if you do this research, it's going to pay off. I would say apply all of those things that we talked about previously, like how to find the beauty in your own shot, go to those locations, but do that, find your own shot. And I think that's a really unique way to sort of approach it. But hang on, my notes have just disappeared. Give me a moment. My brain doesn't work unless I have a script to read from.
Oh, I can 100% relate. That's why my brain doesn't work at all, because I don't have any notes here.
I'll just freeze and stare at the screen blankly until the notes come back. I'll shut down, I need to be rebooted. But yeah, I think you can, you know, the explore page is a really useful tool. And on any social media, the explore page is going to show exactly what is popular and going to do well at that moment in time. I do like to sort of use the explore page to sort of get a rough idea of what's performing well and sort of see what the current trends are. Like editing styles are another thing that sort of seem to trend. Orange and teal. Orange and teal is always going to be in fashion.
But that has been around for a minute.
Yeah, of course, that's been around for a long time. But you know, there's other sort of styles that come in and out of fashion and come and go, but you can always, you know, see them on the explore page. And same with videos as well, right? Like editing styles, transitions, music, all of this trend in music now, and like reels isn't there. Like reels have been brought in, they're a thing, and like TikTok. So there's like songs that trend that you can use that will boost your reach and stuff like that. But again, that's sort of a whole other live stream, I think, talking about social media engagement and reach. This is more kind of, I guess, editing and exporting with the correct settings and sort of framing the things to work. So yeah, that's a very useful tool when you're shooting. Another thing that I used to forget was that I'm not just shooting for social media, even though that's what the topic of this is. But like if I'm shooting something, I would be like, okay, I need to shoot a portrait and I need to frame it to fit the 4:5 ratio. But actually, this might look like a way better photograph if I just shoot it landscape and zoomed out a bit, you know? So when you are shooting, don't forget that life exists outside of social media, because, you know, some of my favorite pictures aren't on social media, and I took them landscape and I shot them with just my own happiness in mind. So don't take all your pictures with social media in mind, you know, step outside of that a little bit. I think it's quite important.
100% agree, because I feel like I put so much work into like my photos. It would not be a waste. Like social media is very important. I'm very aware of that, but still it's like, it's a lot of work. You can use that for other things as well. Like websites or other portfolios.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, websites, portfolio, framing, prints, all those sorts of things. So just sort of, you know, shoot a few different angles, shoot a few different orientations, a few different crops, a few different focal lengths, and just switch it up. And then last one quickly was back to research, I guess, is use mood boards. You know, if you're going to go to a location and you're spending time and money to travel here, and maybe it's like a trip to create content, use mood boards, you know, reference images and like help yourself out, because if you get there, you want to make the most out of that time. I did a quick job. This is a really useful app, by the way. It's Milanote. I use it for like all of my, like, I'm a very visually minded person.
Someone asked about the name of the app. I saw the question and forgot to ask you, but someone was asking about the app.
It's called Milanote, and it's really, I use it to organize like all of my projects now. And it's just like a super cool visual way to like display things. You can do so much more than this. I won't get too much into it, but this is sort of a job I did for a jacket brand, right? So, and you can see now how diverse this app is, but I made my mood board and sort of had a little look. I went through like different explore pages and just found images that I really liked, a very urban sort of like subject focused shots. And then when I was on location, I could just open my phone and refer back to these constantly, and like, okay, obviously you're not trying to copy these, but it's inspiration, right? It's sort of helps you with the framing and the location, like the location actually ended up, all of those things. So, and it goes the same with landscape shots, right? You can sort of see what other people have been shooting, and if you see an image you like, save it. You know, when you go to this place, you can be like, oh, I really like this. How can I sort of make that my own? So yeah, really useful tool. So that kind of is the shooting aspect. Editing is a whole other kettle of fish. So like I said before, you know, you've got these trending editing styles. I think it's actually really important to sort of develop your own. You can obviously buy presets and from like a lot of popular creators and use those to edit. But I think find what works for you over time and use that and kind of, you know, have your own style developed. But there are trending styles out there that you can copy, and they will be on the explore page if you want to see what they are. But something that's really actually useful is the reference image tool in Lightroom. So I'll show you this image here from Madrid that I've cropped too much. I'm going to bring that out. My brain just knows, like, I wouldn't have shot it like that. It's like, no, this isn't the original intended to crop. Oh, okay, I can just go. There we go. So this is the image, the final image. And actually, when I was editing this, I did some research on like some urban shots, like some, you know, shots around Madrid and other parts of Spain. and I found this image that I really liked, which can't be found right now and is probably quite blurry. But what I really took from this was the color palette. You can see here, like the skin tones, the oranges are sort of really warm and a bit saturated. The grays and like the sort of lighter colors are very cold and like, I guess teal. So it is a very sort of orange and teal split. And I really like the greens as well. The greens are really oversaturated here and kind of darker. So what I did was, or what you can do is, if you like an image, you can right click it and set as reference. Where is it? I always miss it. Oh, it's already been set as reference. So I'm not missing it, am I? Oh, there you go, set as reference photo, right at the top. And then what that will do is, if you change your view to reference and actual here, or active, sorry, you'll have your reference image there, and then whatever image you select will be alongside it. And so when I was editing and kind of choosing my colors and breaking down the different sections of the shot, I would be referring back to this and sort of seeing, okay, how did they work with this part of the image? How did they work with this? And it really helped me to sort of bring everything together, which is a great little tool. And I used a lot of masking in this shot as well. So I don't just apply sort of global edits to my images. I'll pick individual spots and sort of break them down. And one of the tools that's really useful for that that's just been updated very recently, is the masking tool, which I love. So I'm going to quickly show you how I used that. I would have used it in this image. Can we actually see all the masks that I've got on this shot?
I mean, I can see them. Yeah.
There we go. Okay, no, it's just well, this is the original image anyway. So let me show you quickly how, if this was like going from scratch, how I'd process this image for social. I'll do a very, very quick example. So let's do it as shot. So the first thing I will normally do is make sure that I have lens corrections on. So remove aberration, enable profile corrections, and then I'll correct the orientation. So if the camera settings don't store this data, sometimes auto doesn't work, or full. So you can just go to level, or you can do it manually as well, or use guided, but for now this does. So I'll tick the constrain crop, so it removes the white, and that will be sort of the base image. Then I'll decide on my crop. So I need to bring it down to a 4:5 crop. So I'll do that. And then, okay, I'll say, how do I want it to be framed? And do I want the subject to be in the center, or do I want, them to be on the bottom, lower third? And I think I went with kind of like the lower third in the other image. So I'll do that. And actually, another thing that's really important to note is, if you're going to use things like vignetting, that is applied according to the crop in Lightroom. So if you decide to crop your images in Instagram and export them as shot, that vignette is going to be on the edges of the shot. So where is it again? Hang on, at the bottom, isn't it? No, I'm losing my mind here. There we go. If I take the feather away, it makes it a bit more obvious. But you can see how that's applied by the edges of the crop. So if I was to export it like that and then crop it in Instagram, it would kind of lose the top half of the vignette and it wouldn't really be applied properly. So that's why actually it's a lot better to crop in Lightroom, and then if you're using vignette, it's applied then correctly to the frame.
Also, Sean has a question. I hope I understand it right. He says, can you set a white and black point from a reference photo? Like, can you interact between the photos, or do you just like visually use it as a reference point? Like you can actually just compare.
I don't know, I could be wrong, but I only ever use it as a visual reference point. I mean, let me see if you can know. Yeah, so you can't interact between the two, I don't think.
So it's more like to check to see, does it look similar?
Yeah, just kind of like a visual reference of like the colors and sort of those sorts of things. But yeah, so yeah, I would set the crop, and then we'll do some quick exposure. We're going to do a very, very quick sort of edit here, just to give an example of the process.
So do you use presets at all, or do you always like edit from scratch?
I usually edit from scratch. I don't really use presets. If anything, like I'll have like an import preset for my photos when I import them to Lightroom. That will just sort of add those corrections that you saw at the start. So it will like remove chromatic aberration, remove lens, add lens corrections, etc., just so I don't have to do that every time. But I mean, the main bulk of editing is done manually. So yeah, and I mean, I would have seen that this is a quite saturated image. We'll do this, but the real edit kind of comes in with the masking tool. So I masked out the subject by hand, I masked out the walls, I masked out the sky, and it took me quite a while to do because this feature hadn't been introduced yet, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to my mask. But now, all you need to do is click this button here and click select subject, and the magic happens. Look at that. How many seconds did that take? I don't even want to talk about the amount of hours that I've spent doing that by hand. Too many. So yeah, I would select my subject, and I can't go back to the reference there, but basically I would have probably exposed them a little bit more. Maybe put a little bit more saturation in, and then also changed the hue a little bit just to match the sort of more red. Yeah. And I also like to maybe sometimes you can add a little bit of clarity, depends on the subject, but you just want them to kind of stand out a bit more, because without that, let me see. Yeah, I mean, oh no, hold on.
I was like, well, that was a quick edit.
Yeah, and that's how I did it. I just
that's how you do it.
Backslash
on this one button and it's done.
I think it's because it's a virtual copy of the original edit. So it's, there we go, playing games with me a little bit. So that's really, so yeah, and then also I would have separated the walls out. So the sky, again, you can press select sky and it just selects the sky like that.
So good.
So good.
I'm mind blown every time. I don't know. I mean, technology.
Ridiculous. I love it.
Crazy.
Sometimes I might add like a bit of a hue or saturation to the sky. Here it's quite blown out, so there's not too much I can do with it. You can also add masks from color ranges or luminance ranges. So I'm going to try. I haven't quite wrapped my head around these fully, but yeah, so I think you can remove as well from masks. I'm not going to pretend like, yeah, I can select subject. There we go. So all of the walls are sort of masked now and the subject's been removed, which again would have taken me so long to do before. And I think because the walls were quite warm in the other image, I would have like boosted the warmth here and also pushed the saturation up and maybe brought the exposure down a little bit. Just sort of separated all of the different aspects of the image out and then color graded them separately. And the same for the floor as well. I think I put a linear gradient there. Let's turn that the other way around actually. So we add mask, linear gradient from the bottom up. And now instead of having to remove that from the subject, we can do it automatically, which I love, as I've said multiple times. And then if you press the O key, it takes away, like it hides the mask, but it's still there. And I think I made the grays quite cool. Added a lot of blue into it. You can also use this tool here to add a sort of tint to your masks, which is great. Reduce the saturation here. So you want it to be very subtle, and then the hue around here. I think, yeah, I mean, that's obviously a very quick example of what I would have done. But when I export it, this is also very important. So the export settings, give me 1 second to get my notes back. The main thing when it comes to exporting for social is that you need to remember social is going to compress your imagery a lot, and you're going to lose some sharpness and some quality. So there are steps you can take to sort of reduce that and sort of optimize your exports to sort of work with this compression. Sharpness is a big factor in this, and you can sharpen in Lightroom. If I can find the actual setting. So we have sharpening here, right? So this is a sharpening tool. And when we're doing this amount here, it's applying that to the whole image. And you don't really want that. What you kind of want to do is apply it, you want the sharpening to apply to the edges and some like the finer areas. And you've got this mask in here. And what that does is it reduces the sort of area that the sharpening is applied to. And if you drag that across, you can actually show if you hold down the Option key on Mac, whilst you're doing that, it shows you what's being sharpened.
So if you go all the way, it has only the edges of
It's fine tuning it basically. Yeah. So I mean, that's
everything.
Yeah, that's how it is when you don't have a mask on. So the whole thing's being sharpened like as a broad stroke. Yeah. And as you bring that across, it kind of fine tunes. So for me, I mean, I don't really care to have this sharpened. That doesn't need to be sharpened. Like what I want is like the rails, like the edges, like the creases, like those sorts of things. So, you know, you can just bring the mask in until it just applies to those areas. And then you can like pump it up if you want, you know, zoom in more to sort of get a better view. But yeah, that's one thing that you want to apply is like your sharpening inside of Lightroom. But also you need to remember that when you do export, there are some settings you can apply in Lightroom right now. So maybe make a note of these if you want. As I said before, so Instagram specifically is going to display the guidelines they have are that images need to be between basically a 4:5 ratio if they're going to be portrait, and it also needs to be 1080 pixels wide. So you either need to adhere to that or when it's, sorry, go on.
No, and higher. I was like either that or higher. And then you have the risk of it just being rendered down a little bit.
Yeah. So what I actually do is I double 1080. So I export it at a higher width. So 160 is my width. And I have these settings here in image sizing. And so I don't have my height set. I just have my width at 160. Don't enlarge. And what that does is then when it is uploaded, if it is compressed, it's not going to lose any sort of, I mean, I'm not a scientist here, I could be wrong. Please don't shoot me. But if anything, it's going to sharpen it a little bit more. Because it's larger than it's meant to be, as opposed to smaller and being enlarged or a weird sort of variation somewhere in between, you know, it's exactly double. With your pixels per inch for Instagram or social, it's not really important. So that's just left at 72. Don't enlarge is ticked. That's quite an important one. And your output sharpening as well. I didn't have this ticked for so long, but obviously you do want to, it's going to end up on a screen like a mobile phone screen. So sharpen for and make sure you have screen selected. And I just have standard.
Do you always export it quality 100?
Yeah, quality 100. I think there's like rumors that like having like 75% like breaks, like tricks the algorithm or something, but all that's going to do is lose quality when it's compressed. It's a myth. So quality 100. I don't limit the file size, color space as well, sRGB, because even though some, I think, is it P3? Some phones do support that, but most don't. So sRGB at the moment is probably the best color space. And obviously JPEG as well is the format that you kind of want to have it exported at. And besides that, I mean, metadata is not important. Instagram's not going to care about that. So you don't need to have that in there. I do, when I export, like to use this format with my file naming. So I have the original file number and then a custom name at the start. So this image was shot in Madrid. So you can see here, I'll have the custom text set to Madrid and then the original file number. And all that means is that when I'm searching for, saying like, oh, what images have I edited from Madrid? And I can just type Madrid in and it'll bring up all of those. Like you can go into Lightroom, metadata, is it slash? What brings it up? I always forget. Bring up the metadata filters.
I think so.
Slash, I'm scared it's going to be something else. Maybe it has to be in library. Either way, yeah, if you press, there we go, text, metadata, and I can just type. I mean, I have tags as well, Madrid in, but then if I think I want a specific image, I also have the file number in there as well. So if I see like a raw image, I'm like, oh, have I edited that? Like, I think I have, where is it? I can just type in the file number as well, and that will bring up the edited image if it exists. So it kind of keeps that link between the raw images, the editing and the exports, you know, which is sort of important for me.
I don't use that, I think. Like that's too high level Lightroom for me.
I mean, it's just export settings, you know. But yeah, very useful. So, because then this is the other thing as well. I noticed that a lot of people I followed, like their images were looking so different to mine when they were actually uploaded to Instagram. And I knew that we'd be shooting on the same kit and editing in the same way. And I was like, why did their photos look so much sharper and crisper? And then I did some research and found out that, I was kind of not really adding enough sharpening and exporting at the wrong dimensions and blah, blah, blah. So these settings here, I know tried and tested. They do work very well. And then I'll just export them. So that's kind of the most important thing, I think, when it comes to export settings. Obviously, you know, each sort of platform might have slightly different dimensions. So, you know, do a little bit of research into that. Like if you're going to post to a story, that's not going to be a 4:5 ratio. I think it's 9:16 because that's full screen.
Yeah.
And the same with like TikTok and Reels, you know, they're going to be full screen, but for a portrait feed post, it's 4:5. The width is always going to be 1080, you know, because the screen's not going to change. But yeah, when well, I don't know, maybe there's some phones out there that work a different way.
The resolution of the phone changed.
Yeah, just a variable resolution. But yeah, that's kind of what I would do for exporting. So I'm trying to think, how much time do we have?
We have 5 more minutes. We're actually
5 minutes. Oh, okay.
Time.
I mean, I have some other images that we could kind of run through. I don't know if there's any questions.
I don't see. One thing is about Instagram accepting PNG. I guess it does, but it's like a huge file that you then have. Like I never used PNG to post to Instagram.
It will definitely, I mean, I've never tried it, but it would definitely compress it a lot. So I don't know how the end quality would be. But I think it says here, like it doesn't say anything about size limits, but it just says guidelines for images on Instagram, aspect ratios all between 1.911 and 4:5. It will always be cropped to fit at 1080 pixels wide unless it's exactly that size. So if it's 1 pixel over, it's going to crop it, you know? Yeah. So that's why I think when it's double, it sort of just compresses it to the 1080. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not too sure about PNGs. I've never tried that.
Me neither. But another thing, before we jump into a photo and we don't have any time, I think we have to talk about your Skillshare class.
Yes, I did launch a Skillshare class last week. It's my second Skillshare class, and I was very excited to launch it. This one is all about beginner's Premiere Pro and editing for efficiency. So I share a lot of my workflows, my keyboard shortcuts, just sort of any like hacks and tips, some templates, anything that's going to really sort of speed up your editing process and things that sort of cut my video editing time down. I've worked in a lot of studios and with a lot of like post-production managers, and sort of I'm very good at absorbing things. So I'll work with them and see how they work. Like, okay, cool, I'm going to apply this to what I do now. There's also some sections on color grading. So I go through basics of color grading and reading the graphs in Premiere. Adobe Media Encoder is included in there, like another tool, which is just amazing, like cuts down and saves you so much time when I'm exporting multiple videos and clips. But yeah, that's on it's on Skillshare, and I'm trying to think where the link is. I don't know if I have one.
Yeah. Because I was about to ask, where can people find it?
On my Instagram,
okay,
which is Wonderguys, and there's a link in my bio which will take you to my Skillshare if you'd like to check it out.
Yeah, I want to check it out now. That sounds kind of cool.
I do have another class which I launched last year, which is all about social media and shooting video for social media. So I actually go really in depth into like algorithm and trends and creating content that's going to reach a large audience. So if you're interested in that as well, it's there.
Yeah, go to Skillshare, check that out. And now we have only 2 more minutes, so I guess we're gonna wrap it up. One last question: do you have a goal for 2022? Something that you want to achieve in 2022?
Yes. So I've been reading this book. I don't know if you've heard, it's called The Artist's Way, I think, and it's basically about sort of rediscovering your creativity, and gives you like a bunch of like things to do each week and like things to write down. And I have a bunch of creative projects that I've sort of had on the back burner for quite a while now. I think a lot of people do. And I think my goal this year is to create one of those, at least one for myself, and not as a work project. So I've been working on that. It's a little short film. So yeah.
Wonderful. Then really looking forward to seeing that project. Thank you so much for doing the first stream of the year with me. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I hope you out there learned a lot as well. It was really nice. The chat was really active, which is amazing. Yeah, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, a wonderful start into this new year, which is going to be a good year. I know it is. It will be. It has to be.
It will be.
And yeah, Charles, once again, thank you so much. And I hope we get to do this again.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for joining everyone. It was an absolute pleasure.
Have a great week. Bye, everyone.